Hi folks, I'm back in Los Angeles, as you can see from the familiar backdrop, and today's t-shirt is Zen AF. Jimmy Image, the lead singer of Zero Defects, is like the archivist of the Akron music scene. So he's got this huge archive of all things related to the Akron music scene. So almost every time I go out to Ohio, he hands me something like a DVD or a CD of some rare thing from the local scene. This time he handed me a DVD which contained a bit of a show that my band, Dementia 13, did in Akron at a place called the Daily Double in the early 90s. And I wanted to share that with you because it's got two things that that might interest people who watch me on this channel. One is that in the intro, I am mentioning the getting beaten up on the streets of Akron that I've talked about here before, and this is the first time I've seen this video, and I'm talking about it, so it must have just happened. It probably happened a few days before that show that we're playing there. So kind of interesting from a standpoint of my own history, and I don't know if you're interested in that, but I guess I'm interested in my own history. The other thing is it contains a live performance of the song God Part 3. God Part 3 is a song that I wrote for the Dementia 13 album Flat Earth Society. I guess that was the final album that was released under the name Dementia 13. I did Flat Earth Society and TV Screenhead roughly around the same time, and I think TV Screenhead came out first and Flat Earth came out second. The song God Part 3, well, it's called God Part 3 because I'd read some article that said that U2 had done a song called God Part 2, and the reason they called the song God Part 2 is because it was Part 2 of John Lennon's song God from his Plastic Ono Band album in 1971, I think that came out. And I thought, if U2 is so arrogant as to claim they can do part 2 of a John Lennon song, then I can do the next part of a U2 song. That's but I actually never listened to the U2 song. I'm very, very well acquainted with the John Lennon song. But this song isn't really related to either the John Lennon song or the U2 song. Obviously not the U2 song because I hadn't heard it. It's kind of my answer to XTC's song Dear God, which I like, and I liked then and I like now, but I thought Dear God takes the same sort of shallow view of God as, Richard Dawkins does, which is to kind of bash this anthropomorphic bearded guy in the sky, God who gives you gifts and presents like Santa Claus. And that's such an easy God concept to debunk that I always feel like Richard Dawkins is kind of lazy, and even Andy Partridge, as much as I love him and his music, I think Dear God is a slightly lazy way to address the concept of God because it's so obvious. Just from a philosophical point, if you want to argue that it's a good song or whatever, you can. But this song, I tried to kind of take a different view of God and try to like get really into it as much as you can in a 3-minute pop song. It's got some references in there which probably haven't aged well, one of which is that maybe a year or two before I wrote the song, one of the big televangelists, I think it was Rex Humbard, but it might not be, but it might be somebody else, had gone on and claimed that if he didn't get a certain amount of money, donations, by a certain time, then God was going to take him back up to heaven. Basically God is threatening to kill him unless he gets enough donations. So there's a line there, if you're a priest, he'll at least threaten to make you deceased. I know Rex Humbard wasn't a priest, he was, priest is Catholic, but it rhymed better. So there you go, that's the song, that's the intro. And here goes. Remember, my new book, Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen, is out now, and you can get it in your stores. And I have a feeling, this may be me being a little paranoid, but I have a feeling that the Buddhist magazines are not going to review my new book, or they're going to give it bad reviews, even though it definitely is a very, very good book, even if I have to say so myself. So, because that's, a big source of publicity for me, I appreciate if you guys share your knowledge of the book, tell people about it, tag it, whatever you do, however you kids these days do, with books, tell people that it's a good book. Also, as always, my donation buttons are below. That's for PayPal and Patreon, and those donations are really important because that's how I make my living. And so here's the song, and we'll see you next time.
I got beaten up by two huge men while walking down Chalker Avenue. I think it was because I was walking down Chalker Avenue. I should know better than that. Is that a good enough story? With Dale Houston, but he's not here, is he? Dale is in the hospital. His head was pulled off by two huge vermin-like creatures. No, he broke a tooth and he'll be all right. Thank you. And thanks to God for inspiring that one.